if I saw another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, taking off without the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys. Welcome back to Red Devil Studio. I am joined once again by the amazing Tom the journalist with hopefully a positive update regarding the Qatar and Sheikh Jassim sale. But remember, guys, if you are new to the channel, we've got 70 plus people watching from the back, so really appreciate it, guys. If you are new to the channel, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, we are United X. Smash the notification button, etc. And make sure you follow Tom at Tom Journalist 1 as well. He's also one of the best guys, at least in my opinion, regarding updates, reliable, non-biased, all the rest of it, and giving obviously quite succinct resources. Shout out to those in the chat as well. I see familiar faces: Jamie, Lucky Singh, etc. Scott Hutchinson, a few people that I've seen around. Green, just a lot of people. I mean, everyone says, "Guys, please just confirm and end my misery." A lot of people, like, please, we just hate this kind of thing. So, yeah, let's get straight into it because obviously, Tom, I'm part of this reason I'm going live. And we are going live a bit earlier because I've got work, so we're going to be going for about an hour or so. So, guys, if you have questions for Tom, get them in. Basically, so we only got maximum an hour here, so please get them in. So let's get into this because Tommy sent me an update, which I think was really, really positive regarding this whole this whole deal. Positive regarding Sheikh Jassim anyway in Qatar. So basically, just give us the gist as to where we are with Sheikh Jassim and Qatar, just given everything that's happened just recent last 24 hours.
Well, within the last 24 hours, the information I got it pretty much just before midnight at 11:55 last night, and from what US sources that myself and colleagues and stuff, we've been working in partnership for over 7 months of covering the takeover. From what they said, the sources have instigated that it's pointing more towards a successful Sheikh Jassim bid at this current stage from that time last night. And the development that we've heard from anyway was from actually within Rain, for who the Glazer family are, if you like, swaying or putting their shoulder on in terms of to come round to actually agree with what their opinion was weeks ago after the third round of bids, as I reported on your show, G, that Rain Group had said to the Glazer family on their personal preference and opinion when all the bids were in that they would pursue a full sale where possible. And you can say they're going to say that for, getting their cut of the deal, it's better for a full sale for them. But the offers that were on the table, from what we understood after the third round of bids, they said to pursue the full sale where possible. And, the sources close to Rain have instigated and stressed to us that there is this whole bubble around that, it was going to be this week, there's going to be an imminent announcement. And, certain points like there is not going to be any imminent decision. There is no, imminent announcement. And from what obviously I'd summed up on your show streams ago, privately, it would have been upwards of 3 weeks ago now. Sir Jim Ratcliffe privately had been the preferred bidder. He was the Glazer family's chosen boy because Avram and Joel were instigated in terms of they were prepared to stay with 20%. That didn't really affect them in that case. But the four siblings have always wanted out from the start. And of course, that was, after the fourth improved Qatar offer from Sheikh Jassim, then they had instigated to Sir Jim Ratcliffe via Rain and via directly to Sir Jim and Ineos that they were prepared to go public with them. And then after that latest, initiation, they made a direct communication with Sheikh Jassim and instigated to the 9-2 Foundation that they had to bid more, otherwise they were going to go public with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And at the time, there was no agreement, and Sir Jim for weeks has been negotiating with the Glazer family, and he's still not been able to come to a breakthrough or come to an agreement. And when they put in the fifth bid, as were described to us in terms of it's a premium offer, you know, another coining phrase that we got from last night was it's blown the door completely open with regards to the Glazer family now, as they're discussing if it's a better offer financially for them in terms of the right here and now, in terms of a short-term option and solution to what they've, you know, got and they've instigated. And a close source within the Glazer, you know, close to the Glazer family, told us that this fifth Qatar offer has shown the Glazer family their top offer, and they wouldn't ever get this offer if they were to try and sell in, say, 2, 3, 4 years' time. They wouldn't get a valuation this high for what the valuation of the New York Stock Exchange states it's worth. So they would therefore, if they don't go with this offer now, they're not going to get it in the immediate future. In hence, say, for example, Sir Jim Ratcliffe does his proposal to buy them out, which we'll get onto in terms of some sort of legal proceedings around that. But the conversations and communication with Rain haven't been engaged for well over a week between, you know, Sheikh Jassim themselves and all interested parties to Jim Ratcliffe. There hasn't been any indication given to either group that they are, you know, the preferred bidders. But from what Sheikh Jassim's camp have uncovered regarding the US markets, a lot of the US markets and stock traders, from what they've used as their, if you like, market research, they are heavily favouring towards Sheikh Jassim over Sir Jim Ratcliffe, hence the spike in the New York Stock Exchange shares. So they're getting confidence from what they know in terms of their knowledge of how the stock market works. And, you know, just to clear something up around what a couple of journalists have reported, it would have been yesterday the 9-2 Foundation had created their actual base and company lines within the UK. They, you know, liquidated, and, you know, it's on, you know, for company houses for people in the UK if they wanted to go and search it. And it's also had its own base within Qatar. The 9-2 Foundation Limited is a registered company now in the UK, and it had been registered electronically as of yesterday. And people who were reporting that this, you know, this was, you know, months in advance and things like that, it's not. It's completely of the contrary. It's complete false. You can set up a company within days, like in some cases within hours. And in terms of the outline of how it was, the overall currency for which the 9-2 Foundation operates with, in terms of a UK-based company, it operates within USD, which is coincidental what the Glazer family have run the process for the actual sale with. You put your offers in US dollars. You don't put it in pounds or, you know, rupees, whatever you want to put it in. You do it in USD. And for which they were granted to be an operational company yesterday. And the misleading of it all is some people say that, you know, it's like I say, as it takes months to do these things, you can do it overnight. You know, you could create, you know, the Red Devil Studio Limited company if you wanted to, and you could do it, you know, probably here back within days, maybe even a couple of hours, if you wanted to register a company. Maybe not over the weekend, but, you know, through the working days of a week, Monday to Friday, you could probably do it. But all in all, in terms of the Sheikh Jassim side of things, from the US in the last 10 days overall, and since that fifth Qatari offer, there seems to have been a switch. And with Joel and Avram, those two siblings are being strongly advised by Rain, their own personal advisors who they've worked in partnership with for over 10 years, even so long as their father was alive at the time, in the Rothschilds, are telling them, you won't get this money ever again. So if you want a big payout, this is the time to get it now. And they're being strongly advised to reconsider their previous decision in favour of a full sale towards Sheikh Jassim's delegation. And this is effectively what US sources are saying. The signs are pointing towards going with Sheikh Jassim's offer in terms of the Glazer family. You have 4 members who are happy to fully sell. So I think you know where their minds are made up upon in terms of what option they would go for. It's just Joel and Avram. And as I've reported many times, Joel you can persuade because as much as he states, privately, this is going to maybe annoy a lot of Manchester United fans. Privately, what's been described to him is Joel Glazer is a Manchester United fan. So you can see the rhetoric around that. He's the Manchester United fan, but he's not been seen at Old Trafford for years. Avram Glazer is the one that goes. Like, you can look at things like that. That's the sort of message that the Glazer family have, put out there in terms of public knowledge and PR regarding themselves around this whole situation. I mean, you can look at it from two perspectives. Joel, he's been the most involved in terms of all members of the Glazer family, in terms of the operations. If you want to sign a player or, you need it signing off, he's the guy you go to get it signed off and finalised, to release funds. Like, he does have a day-to-day, if you like, role within the club in terms of the operations of it. And people have questioned, is it a case of, can you just throw money at these guys and they'll go? Or is it that they genuinely have an invested interest? And the one thing, as I've always reiterated with Yuji and, everybody else, a part of the community, is that the Glazer family are always prepared, all six of them, even though they don't have a brilliant relationship with one another, they've all been in agreement that if the right offer comes in and the set price of £6 billion, they're prepared to go straight away. Because at the end of the day, they get more than $1 billion each, which was what they initially would have wanted, whether it be now or 3-4 years ago. That's what they wanted ultimately, and they're getting that now. In terms of if the Qatar offer suffices to those numbers, then this is probably hence why the Glazer family are being advised from all sides in terms of advisors and people they've hired over the years, or as a partnership to run the sale of Manchester United. They're being advised to pursue a full sale where possible from all of their different parties, but it depends, like I say, on what Joel and Avram really want to do. If they want to stay, they have the option to stay. If they don't, and they've got the big money that they've been looking for, well, Qatar is pretty much the only option, really.
Man, Tom, really, really appreciate your updates about it. I mean, and thanks for just giving us James says Joel's a United fan. Stop it. I mean, just to sort of obviously further dive into some of the stuff you said, and I think I'm just starring some of the questions, and I think a lot of this stems from obviously the writers, so the Reuters tweet an article that came in that basically alludes to the fact that Sheikh Jassim appears to be granted exclusivity, and obviously, Reuters being a more of a business website than like a sports journalist website takeover, like, so, combining this with the stocks, does that further kind of prove? Because, like I said, for me, I was very much on the fence a bit until I combined the stocks information with this. Does this kind of further prove or lead to the fact that the Glazers look like they are essentially granting or in the process of granting Sheikh Jassim exclusivity as opposed to Sajim? Or is this, as someone kind of summarized, a situation where it looks like they are going to give exclusivity to Jim, but this exclusivity is kind of like, we're saying this so that if Sir Jim has an offer, like, essentially we're going to give time for Sir Jim to basically increase his offer, but if things were to end now, Sheikh Jassim basically has won. Is that basically where we are?
Yeah. That last point that you said, if the process was just to end today, right here and now, Sheikh Jassim's won, because he's if you like, he's equaled what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is offering in the long term, but you get it here and now in the short term. So for the Glazer family, why would you stay when you're not really going to get much, but you're just going to be staying for a couple more years to get very little more than what you would get here and now, essentially, if anything more in the long term with Sir Jim. So, you can look at it from Sir Jim Ratcliffe's point of view. I mean, he has, if you like, sat there the whole time, and there hasn't really been the pressure's not really been on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because you know what he's offering you in terms of thinking about it from a Glazer perspective. And the Reuters report, in terms of where they've gone out on a limb, not to say the wording of it, I guess, has confused a lot of people. The Reuters report states that the Glazer family, that Sheikh Jassim's group are negotiating to enter exclusivity. It's not that they are actually in it and they're negotiating within the exclusive period. they want to have an exclusive period is essentially what they're instigating there, the Reuters report. And the one thing I can say, to reiterate and back up what you said about Reuters is they're a business, a major business outlet, worldwide. It's almost as if the equivalent that you get, for example, if you had a Bloomberg that came out, people would take a lot of notice to that around the actual business world and the marketing world around finance. Because you can say it for what it is, a lot of football journals are going to cover this based on it's a football club, but you're also going to get the news outlets that are going to cover it based on it's a multi-billion-pound business, and it would be the biggest business deal within sports if it was to go through at the rate that the Glazer family want of £6 billion, which is, you're talking, closer to double-digit dollars than you are one singular dollars in terms of the actual valuation. So ultimately and overall, with what you just said around Sheikh Jassim and the Reuters report, it's a case of they want to have an exclusive period. But the one thing, like I say, after that fifth offer, and it has, I don't necessarily, how can I say, it's touched a nerve with the Glazer family because they're taking his threat very seriously in terms of it's my fifth and final offer and that's it. We're not going any further. We're not going to go out on a limb because of how long this has taken.
Yeah,
Sheikh
so,
Jassim,
sorry to interrupt you. Has that, and maybe this, and so, like I said, guys, we're going to go through your questions. I'm starting the comments with questions and stuff, so we're going to show questions. But yeah, you just want to get through some of my own. Was that a factor really as to why things have changed or changing so suddenly? Because we did talk about was it a week plus ago about how Sheikh Jassim said this was going to be my final offer. I'm not going to do anything else after that. It's either take it or leave it. And has that kind of threat really kind of caused the Glazers to really kind of reconsider, rethink, etc., given what's at stake?
Well, the Glazer family have they've taken what he said, with great enthusiasm. They seriously believe in what he has stated and quoted in terms of the Glazer family, and the source that we use around them for the entire time has insisted that they seriously believe that he means it. And the Glazer family have taken, from the whole process, from the start to the day that we are now, they've taken a strong approach to negotiating the deal. And at this point in stage now, it's important to note that they have aggravated both bidding groups, not just the Qataris and Sheikh Jassim. They've aggregated Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And the reason why the bidding groups are aggregated by it is because there's been a lack of communication from the very start. There's been a lack of the decision making, either via Rain or the Glazer family, and the timing of an announcement. There hasn't been a timeline really to say when this is going to end. This can drag on for as long as it, needs to be or has to be until they actually decide to make their minds up. And as we say, the sources that we've used within the Glazer family's inner circle, and in terms of their personal aides within Rothschilds, have confirmed. They confirmed to us last night that the family are taking Sheikh Jassim's threat very seriously due to his delegation. After that, they put the bidding on the Wednesday, and then on the Friday they said we're not going to communicate or engage in conversation to get an update or want to know what's going on. The Glazer family have taken that very seriously because in terms of what they actually said, they've done it. They've followed up on what they've said. They aren't communicating and they aren't engaging with Rain or directly with the Glazer family after they put that final offer in to both parties, to Rain and directly to the Glazer family. They haven't engaged or communicated for an update like they have done for the foreseeable time that they've been in the process. So what they said, really, they meant. And he's not necessarily walked away from the bidding table, but he's just left his offer sat there, really, and he said, you deal with it. I've put my final offer on the table, and that's that. And the coining phrase of Qatar's power play, really, it seems to have paid off, given that the Glazer family are reevaluating, as I say, the prospect of being bought out in the short term in comparison to a long-term put on call and potential legal, binding sort of agreement and contractual structure deal with Ineos. In terms of what's better, is the money now better and it's a lot easier to go through because we don't have potentially a lawsuit against us and different factors that we'll get into in terms of Sir Jim Ratcliffe? Or do we just go for the one instalment straight offer from Sheikh Jassim? he puts the different pledges and different pointers in, which means nothing to us in terms of the Glazer family.
Yeah.
But it means something for Manchester United fans and the football club in the long term for a new ownership. And the Glazer family, from what I know in terms of now, they are treading on thin ice. They're being very cautious over angering either both bidding group further, given how long they have led this process throughout. And insiders have said, as I reiterated before, no decision is imminent, but a rethink of their original decision has and is now playing out since the fifth Sheikh Jassim offer. So all in all, to summarise on this point and question, if the Glazer family have wanted a big payout and a big sort of offer rounded up via Qatar, then they've been given that option now. And Qatar really and Sheikh Jassim, they've done all they can, and they said, look, you've took us to this point now. We're not willing to negotiate. You've took the negotiations away from the table, and that's due to how long you've decided to hold out on this process. We were willing to negotiate, weeks and months ago if you wanted to go up in terms of evaluation, but you've never picked us from that long back. So why now? And at the end of the day, as myself and colleagues have always insisted throughout, all 6 members of the Glazer family will leave the football club if the right price is met. And really, I guess that fuels and sparks the feeling and the theory that they've been waiting for a bigger offer because of how long they've dragged this process out. And it was further fueled by going directly to, the influential sporting figure linked to Qatar in Nasser Al-Khalifi and asking him to play for like a middleman role between themselves in the Glazer family and Sheikh Jassim to increase his offer. In for which Nasser Al-Khalifi, he didn't do as the Glazer family wished in terms of play a middleman, but the sort of words that were described to us around that was he did have a word. He spoken to contacts back home, and Sheikh Jassim from there, as we've seen, he's improved his bids. So whatever had been said, if it has been directly said to the 9-2 Foundation, not directly via Nasser Al Khalifi, but he's sent somebody or he's passed the message on really to say that, look, this is what they're wondering and this is what they're wanting, yada yada, do with it what you please. And from that point on, really, Sheikh Jassim's done what he's done. He's put the final bids in, and the Glazer family now, they have to make a decision. And the one thing that you can never associate with the Glazer family is there's no such, in a Glazer dictionary, there's no such word as imminent, and there's no such word as decision. They make their mind up when they please. That's how they've ran this whole process. So anything to the contrary, when a journalist or a news article wants to come out and state that, there's an imminent announcement, and I know, with what happened with, say, Rio Ferdinand, I know I've seen the videos, and you've seen the posting around it, or Qatar, it's imminent, it's coming through, and this, that, the other. Listen, Rio Ferdinand is a respectable football player, but he's not a journalist. In terms of, he doesn't know the ins and outs of how to word things and say it, and how he might mislead people in what he says. Imminent means right here and now. Like, you refresh Twitter every couple of seconds, and it's going to be there within 10 seconds. It's not it's not the case as we've seen. But the Glazer family's decision, like, they've made their mind up twice already, and when they made their mind up twice already, it was to Jim Ratcliffe. But this fifth offer has sparked the rethink, and the reason why it sparked the rethink is everybody around them's telling them to rethink, because you will regret this later down the line if you don't take this money now, because you're not going to see this money again. Is the phrasing and the wording that's come out from the people around them that's advising them. That's from Rain, that's from Rothschilds, that's from, even some people, as much as maybe even their wives and children that they might have. So it is imbalanced in terms of they're getting outside influence filled into their heads. But as I've always reiterated, the sticking point around a full sale to Sheikh Jassim is Joel and Avram. If you offer them enough money, they will go. But if you don't, they're prepared to stay. And I know I made the comment around Joel being a Manchester United fan, but that's just what's being filtered in. He has been, that's the sort of thing. He's, if you like, rejoiced in terms of the football club that he owns. And, you can look at it from two perspectives. They own the biggest football club in the world. So it's something to shout about. It's something to talk about and be, PR and big about. You own the biggest football club in the world, essentially. It's a big marketing tool, and your name's attached to it. So while you have something like that before you decide that you might want to leave it or move on. And at the end of the day, the Glazer family, reiterate, they have pulled off the Hatton Garden heist in terms of what maybe, British people might perceive it as. They've pulled off one of the biggest, coups ever. You buy a football club with not your own money, and then, just in millions, and then over 18 years of transcript and plan, you've then going to potentially getting paid out billions of pounds for it. Like, it is almost the equivalent of
It's robbery.
A normal
It's
British person winning on a scratch card. Really, that's the equivalent, I guess, can give it.
It's robbery. It's theft and heist of robbery. That's what I'll say. That's absolutely what I'll say. Thanks again for that, Tom. Let me just quickly a question. So I'm going to start with Atonement's question, and I'll walk down. So Atonement says, question, Tom, what do you make of reports that a new owner, regardless, who won't be in charge until? So, what do you make of reports that a new owner, regardless, who won't be fully in charge until the end of the summer, effectively ruining Manchester United's transfer plans this summer, if true?
Well, to answer that question, Atonement, Manchester United as summer plans won't be ruined in terms of the directors, Eric Ten Hag, and everybody in and around the football club who runs it currently right now. They already knew what the plan was coming into this. In November, they would have already really known what the plan was for the next summer window. How multi-billion-pound football clubs, and particularly in the Premier League, from the knowledge that we know in and around other football clubs that come into the league and they develop, is football clubs plan 2 summer windows in advance. That's how far they plan in terms of what they want to do and the sort of finances they have in place. But obviously the FFP, being on, if you like, the amber list at the moment in Manchester United, and that could transpire in the red list if they spend over the equivalent amount that they can. Chelsea, for example, are in the red list at the moment in time for FFP. They need to sell players to balance the books. And that's, I guess, a counterpoint to Manchester United's situation right now. But in terms of the ownership, I've fully insisted, like many a times, and I've always used this phrase on your channel anyway, G, is you're not even 50% through the process right now. And the reason why I've always said that is the longer this delays on and Joel and Avram don't speak their minds in terms of they make a decision and they're prepared to speak out and say what that decision is on behalf of the whole family, because the 4 other members we know want to sell. So it's up to what those 2 want to do, effectively. And ultimately, in the end of it all, a new ownership is not going to have a major impact anyway on the summer transfer window, even if they were here, because they can't really do much. The only thing, I guess, that I've already reiterated and said is, on a previous stream, if it was to be Sheikh Jassim, for example, and the debt was to be cleared before the transfer window ended, it adds another £50 million to Manchester United's budget. That's it. They can't inject any cash in straight away anyway because of how the FFP rules are straining and strangling Manchester United as it is. So, as much as people want to proclaim that it's going to ruin Manchester United's transfer plans this summer, in theory, you could say yes, because you still have the Glazer family sitting around, and obviously we know the opinion of the Manchester United fan base and the wider fan base upon those individuals per se, and how they have run the football club. But you could also say, even you have Sheikh Jassim, you have Sir Jim Ratcliffe, there's not a lot different that's going to happen in the transfer window. And I'm being honest in saying that, because if you think that they're going to come in and blow £200 million on top of the budget, yeah, they can do that, but you're going to breach FFP rules. And then suddenly, the situation that Manchester City are in, Manchester United will be brandished for whatever they do after that period as, well, you were a cheater club. You were a club, you broke the laws, you broke the rules. And anything that Manchester United might go on to do later down the line, in terms of the players that they sign, if they have an Aguero moment, for example, well, that can be tarnished, because you can say, oh, well, when you bought that player, you breached the rules, you cheated. It's effectively, you did basically what Manchester City did, really, in terms of they broke the financial fair play rules. Manchester United would be an accessory to that if that was to happen. So, to summarise, no new owner coming in, even if they were to come in, say, tomorrow, and Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they can't influence much. The only thing that they can influence is what they did with the Manchester United debt. And with the debt, if both parties, we know with Sheikh Jassim what he wants to do with the debt, we don't know with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, is if it was to remove the debt, totally, and make Manchester United a debt-free football club, it adds £50 million to the transfer budget because you don't have the interest payments and the loans that you have to pay off in terms of the overall commercial budget.
Of
So then
course.
you can add another £50 million. That's where it comes from. It doesn't just come out of thin air. So effectively, that's why I've said 18 years ago, Sir Jim Ratcliffe buying Manchester United would have been perfect because it was a debt-free football club.
Yeah.
And it was already sustainable at the time. But right here and now, if you're not going to remove the debt from Manchester United, you're really going to be sitting in the same pot, if I'm being completely honest. Not a lot is going to change because you're still having shackles on. You still got the chains on Manchester United, whereas you take them off, commercially, we know Manchester United can run sustainably.
Yeah.
And a sustainable Manchester United, regardless of if they have wealthy owners behind them or not, a sustainable Manchester United is just as bad as potentially being owned by a sovereign wealth fund, which is worth hundreds of billions of pounds. Because a sustainable Manchester United that can spend 200, 300 million pounds easily every single summer window is just as scary as what, say, Manchester City have done right here and now in terms of the money that they've spent over a longer period. Maybe even more so than what Chelsea did, in the first 12 to 18 months of ownership with Todd Bowley and Clearlake. Like, that is how, if you like, frightening it can be in terms of the vision. And listen, if you have extra wealth behind you in terms of an owner that they're willing to invest, it only just fuels that problem and that worry, I guess, for maybe other football clubs and operators around them.
Fair enough, Tom. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh wait, no, we've kind of addressed that actually. Solo says, "Is it of any importance that the 92?" Okay, we kind of did already touch that as well. So I want to just skip through things that we just haven't talked about. But does anybody know exactly what the Sheikh Jassim bid is? Is it £6 billion? I think the only reason I'll touch on this is that presumably, Tom, given this premium bid that Sheikh Jim has had, given that it's a bid that's to consider, it surely must be close to the $6 billion valuation that the Glazers want. It must be. It can't be go on.
Without actually knowing the official numbers because of an NDA agreement, and that's what it prohibits it from. The wording that every single journalist has had has been that this Sheikh Jassim offer is very close, or it's on par with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's full long-term valuation of buy here and now in the short term, and then buy the rest of it later on. It pretty much epitomizes that structure, but you would be buying it all right now. So you effectively save the Glazer family waiting around to get more money later on, effectively. But as JC, just to point out, the process has been run whenever you've made an offer or a bid, you bid in dollars, not pounds. The dollars equivalent is because when they would convert the exchange and the actual currency from a takeover deal, whether it be partial, minority, or a full sale, then because the company books are registered in the Cayman Islands, they get tax-free from it. So therefore, you don't pay tax on what the actual overall sale is. You literally give Rain their promotional cut that you've had, and then you go from there and you split the money out between what each individual Glazer has in terms of their shares, gets equivalently split out to them for what they accumulate and they hit effectively. So that's a roundup of how it works. But the evaluation is very close, if not bang on what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is offering, but it means that they will get it here and now.
Thanks for that, Tom. Really appreciate it. Let me quickly go. So I'm just looking at the comments to make sure there's no new questions, which there isn't. Okay, so I'm going to go with start. So I think so. Oh, it says, when is the announcement coming next week? I mean, I'll sort of rephrase the question in terms of, how long do you think it's going to take for there to be an official announcement or relatively official announcement from the Glazers regarding exclusivity with this whole process? Do you think it might be this week? Do you think it might be next week? Do you think we're still going to get weeks of back and forth? I mean, what do you think, Tom? Oh, Tom, you there? Okay, I think he's on. Ooh, hold on 1 second. Oh yeah, sorry. Tom will be back in about 2 minutes. I've just seen a message, so just bear with us for 2 minutes. But if I had to answer this question, I actually think I don't think we're gonna get just from what I've seen, from what I've looked on Twitter and stuff, and the general gist is that I don't think that we're gonna get I don't think we're gonna get an answer. I would say earliest maybe the end of next week, possibly the week afterwards. But yeah, it's like Thomas and we kind of really been saying is that I just don't think that this is going to be resolved, because bearing in mind, we obviously need the official comment from the Glazers that exclusivity has happened. We are getting rumors, but the rumors do seem to point towards Sheikh Jassim right now. But there's a difference between going from that and maybe waiting for potential Sir Jim to respond versus we are definitively putting out a statement which says we confirm that Sheikh Jassim is in exclusive talks, i.e. he's our preferred bidder, etc. And I think personally for me, that's probably going to take another probably 2 weeks. And then on top of that, you then have to consider the Premier League, UEFA, all that approval stuff. That's going to take time as well. So guys, yeah, I would say that we're not going to be getting. This is going to be resolved until the beginning of the season. Let's put it that way. This isn't going to resolve until the beginning of the season, and we'll come back to that when Tom comes back. So hear his thoughts, but I'll just obviously go for the questions, giving my take as well. Seeing Qatar's ends exclusivity run, obviously going by the writers' reports as well. Writers, I don't know how you pronounce it anyway. Richard Joblin says, so still not all Thomas back, hey.
Yeah, I'm back, yeah.
No worries, thanks to Tom. So I was just saying that I think that this is still going to take maybe 2 weeks for us to get an official announcement from the club. But I mean, do you think it'll be sooner or later? Or what are your thoughts?
To be honest, like as I reiterate, there is not a timeline at the end of the day. It's not a case of they have to make their mind up by a certain time. They can decide tomorrow if they wanted to. They could, God forbid, decide next year if they wanted to. Like they can decide, deliberate, talk, do what they want to do for however long. Like they could do maybe what a lot of maybe football players go on vacation for 2 weeks or something, and then decide after that. Like the Glazer family, because the one thing is you just don't know. These guys, in terms of if you were a psychologist, they would be a perfect test subject to do on, because you can never predict what they're going to do, because they can say that they're going to do one thing and then they do the complete opposite, you know. And at the drop of a hat, the only thing I've always known with, as I say, with the Glazer family is if you hit the evaluation, the way that the Glazer family have worked is they've put both of the groups essentially to the point of where when they sign, a deal can go through relatively quickly at rapid speed. And when they give either or of the groups the signal in terms of you're the guy that we want to go through, not necessarily a preferred bidder, but potentially probably the prospective buyer, that you're the guy that we want. And they put them to the point where whomever gets the indication, they're going to move forward with in terms of, right, well, you've already got a registered company, for example, with the 92 Foundation. You have a registered hub within the UK and within Qatar. Brilliant. That speeds up the process and it probably saves you a couple of days. Therefore, then everything's signed off. You sign on the dotted line to say that you're the exclusive buyer. And then from there, you then submit the paperwork to the Premier League, for which, in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's case, it wouldn't. I don't really think an owners and directors test is going to affect Sir Jim Ratcliffe buying Manchester United. In the same way as a private individual, Sheikh Jassim, I don't expect it to affect him at all. There's going to obviously, in terms of the Premier League, there's going to be more scrutiny towards Sheikh Jassim for the obvious reasons. He's from Qatar. They already have an investment within a football team and sport. You know, they're going to look at the links between the two and where the actual source of wealth and funds are coming from, for which he and his 92 Foundation delegation have always insisted it's from a private wealth fund. And a private wealth fund normally means separate to a state, or it's state money that's been put to one side for maybe years to come or whatever, in which it's an individual cash flow for a certain individual. So, for example, it might be a retirement fund for, say, HBJ, which is his father, for the political influence he's had on their country from being their former prime minister, for example. that could be one of the reasons where that money has come from.
Mm.
But at the end of the overall announcement, as I've reiterated, I don't expect there to be an announcement this week. And if there was to be next week, like, who knows? I'm not going to sit here and set a deadline that I don't believe in or that I don't at least know is going to happen or come true, because I don't. So ultimately and overall, it swings and roundabouts. And the Glazer family, when they make their mind up, I'm sure either them directly will indicate, or they will use the Rain Group to make contact with one of the groups. And as I say, because both groups haven't been communicated with for well over a week now, normally when it comes to a takeover process, the person who talks first is normally the one that doesn't end up getting the football club. For example, when Chelsea got down to two prospective buyers, you had Todd Bowley, you had Stephen Pagaluka. It came down to they had a choice, and the Rain Group had decided upon who they wanted to go with. And they decided that Todd Bowley was preferred bidder. Stephen Pagaluka was the first one to speak out in terms of he's withdrawn his offer, he's pulled from the race, or he's leaving his offer there, but he's not he's not going into negotiation. So essentially, they've pulled away before any news breaks that they've lost to save face and credibility, effectively. So you could see a scenario where Sheikh Jassim is given the nod. So Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos would then indicate, something to do with that they're pulling the offer, or they've left the offer on the table and they're walking away from the deal, negotiations, whatever. So to summarise, there is no imminent announcement, and imminent to me is within days, and there is not going to be an announcement as planned anyway within days. So the indications, as I've said, from the US are pointing towards Sheikh Jassim. However, the alternative to that is Sir Jim Ratcliffe can always come in with another bid.
Yeah.
Like that is, and I'm not coming here to scaremonger, Manchester United fans, but that could be another option. But because he's never increased before, and there's not been an indication that he ever would or he ever could, there is that question mark there. And if I had to balance the opinion out, personally, the reporting that we got was he's been allowed $5 billion, which equates to just under, or just in and around £4 billion, really. And that's not enough, obviously, for a full takeover. And ultimately and overall, I don't really think he's got a lot more that he can stretch in terms of giving more money here and now and later down the line than maybe what Sheikh Yassim and the Qataris could give them right now. And that's why I say that the pendulum really has swung more towards Sheikh Yassim and the Qataris, not Sir Jim Ratcliffe as it had been for 3-4 weeks, really. And he's been negotiating for 3-4 weeks and he's never come to an agreement. So
Fair enough, Tom. Fair enough. Appreciate the update, buddy. Let me just quickly. So I'm just looking and checking. I've probably got 10-15 minutes left, but I've got to go to work. So I'm just going to quickly run through these questions quick, if that's okay. Let me just quickly go here. Yes, we said Qatar exclusivity round. So still not close to a deal. Any timetable? What is the deal value? Price per share? Great report symptom. Cheers, Red Devils. I think we've kind of sort of touched on that. We're essentially like it looks like Sheikh Jassim is going towards a specific exclusivity, but the reality is that there doesn't need to be an imminent announcement from the club, really. As Thomas kind of said for this whole process, this whole idea that there's a timetable, there's a deadline, all these things, that doesn't work in this. At the end of the day, at any point in time, like a Sir Jim Radcliffe, for example, could even just frown and say, yeah, I'm going to up my offer for half the club, whatever, or I could bid X, Y, and Z, and that would throw a massive thing. So really and truly, and especially when the Glazers are still so undecided and with how they're doing things, this could definitely drag on for a lot longer. RSV says Routers also announced Chelsea sale a week before they were actually sold last year, and I think that's a fair point as well. So another reason as to why we should take them seriously. Yasu says the Glazers want to keep the deal Sheikh Jassim secret because they're scared of what will happen with the share price. Tom, do you think there's an element of truth to that? Oh, is Tom there? Has he come back? Sorry, 1 second. 1 second. Is that on? You there, Tom? Okay, he must be coming. He must be coming back. So Tom should be back soon. So let me just quickly address some of the questions myself, and also going by what Tom has said. So the Glazers want to keep the deal with Sheikh Jassim secretly because they're scared of what will happen with the share price. Possibly. There is something. A last question I want to ask Tom regarding Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the whole issue with how, because I think one of the things that hasn't been touched in this whole scheme is that there's been so much focus on Qatar and what they'll do and the bid and all the rest of that. There hasn't really been a lot of focus, and I think the Athletic kind of touched on it recently this morning about what Sir Jim's bid actually is and how it's going to be structured and the potential complications of a partial sale as well. Oh, Tom's back. Just looking at the statement, Tom, do you think there's any truth to this?
What's the statement, G? Sorry.
Right, the Glazers want to keep the deal with Sheikh Jassim secretly because they're scared of what happened with the share price.
Not really, no, because the share price, obviously, if it was to be made public knowledge, would skyrocket, really. And
yeah.
In terms of the stocks, and from what my friend had told me around the stocks that I have that works within in the stock market and has done for years, is that if you got to the point of where you're upwards of $28-30 per share, that's almost enough in terms of an indication to say that there is an imminent sale of a business. For example, same thing happened with Twitter. When you could buy shares on it, the shares increased and got to a ridiculous figure and a ridiculous number at the time. It was the biggest indication that Elon Musk had been successful in buying Twitter, or he was in the process of buying Twitter at the time of when those shares increased. So the Glazer family, in terms of the share price going up, it improves. And I guess in terms of if they wanted to keep it secret, the theory behind that, I guess, has some weight to it, because if you wanted to keep it secret, then yeah, you don't let the cat out of the bag. And if the share price goes up, it's going to give everybody the indication that a full sale is imminent. And if you keep it as what it is right now, really, and if you have a deal in the background and behind the scenes and you keep it quiet, then at the end of the day, really, that benefits a lot of people and everybody, because you're keeping it away from the stock, from the stockbrokers and the stock exchanges. But in theory as well, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim, then they know what the score is, really. And if you want to pin the two groups against each other still, you can do, because you've still not made your decision and mind up. So therefore, you can have a deal maybe on the side and on the slide with one of the parties agreed already. But if the other one doesn't know anything about it, then what's the point and what's the theory behind it? There isn't one at the end of the day. And ultimately, overall, the Glazer family aren't scared in terms of what will happen to the share price, because if the share price went up, that just basically lets the answer and the cat out of the bag if they didn't want to say anything, effectively. If they didn't want to make an announcement public or anything, they would just make that common knowledge and say, look, the share price has gone boom, and that's the point that, if you like, no return, because it already gives everybody the definitive answer that a full sale has happened if it was to go to that rate. So Jim Ratcliffe, like I say, on the other hand, in terms of the law and the logistics behind it, it's a completely different ballgame, really.
Thanks for that, Tom. I'm going to quickly speed through some of these questions. That's okay, because I know I've got to work in a second. So we'll just summarize some of this stuff. So yes, between financial journalists and football journalists, who should we believe in take? Because more financial issues. So I see it's relation to Reuters as well, which I think we've kind of addressed that. How quickly can we actually get out of FFP trouble with new owners after this year? Says Solo.
In terms of the FFP and how you can get around it, it's not so much as a new owner has to do it. The Glazer family could do it right now in terms of their ownership. It's if Manchester United equate, I think, if on a good window, 80 to 100 million pounds in player sales, it gives whoever comes in from the following window and the following summer, it gives them a better head start than they originally would have, effectively. If you can, the main focus, as much as people will say around, we need a striker, we need a goalkeeper, we need another midfielder, we need a fullback, whatever. The, I guess, main concern really is getting rid of a lot of the players that you have, in terms of try and get some of the money that you got back for the players that maybe you're going to be burnt on, and you're going to have to accept that. For example, £80 million on Harry Maguire and potentially a scenario where Jadon Sancho might leave. You're not going to get anywhere near the money that you've paid for those players. But you're going to have to take a hit somewhere if you want to restructure and remodel. And then obviously you get players to interest and go elsewhere. But there's not a lot of high profile players anyway. When they come to Manchester United, that Manchester United sell them for stupid money. Maybe the most recent one that you could think of is maybe Lukaku, really. But even if you go far as back as maybe when Manchester United sold Cristiano Ronaldo, like for upwards of however much money, 70, 80 million euros or whatever at the time to Real Madrid, like dating as far back as that, Manchester United don't hardly ever sell their superstars when they have them. Really, they normally keep them at the football club for commercial reasons or for, team performance. So ultimately and overall, it's more a case of to get out of the FFP trouble, Manchester United have to have a successful window selling players, not just as much as buying them.
No, that makes sense, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of need to realize, that like we need to sell. We actually need to sell players. We need to sell players. That's definitely it's important, and the fact that, and I know people look at Chelsea and like, oh, Chelsea, they're spending loads of money, blah, but the reality is that Chelsea are far better at selling players than we are, plus or minus obviously what they how they're being run as well. Another quick question by Jamie One, who says, what's going on with the staff being unsure and worried about their positions at the club? I assume that's referring to the takeover, that a lot of the staff are unsure about what their jobs are going to be like. I don't know whether to discuss it, but presumably this is kind of the sort of the standard and fortune what happens when a club is taken over. That unfortunately there's just some uncertainty. I mean, would you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah. Like it, as we know, like staff members and people like are going to be worried. It's almost as if like if your boss isn't your boss anymore, you're going to be worried. Oh, is the next guy going to come in and replace me? Or, am I going to have a good partnership with them? And really and ultimately, the one thing that I know, especially on the Sheikh Jassim Qatari side, is when they come into office, they're going to do the exact same model as what Chelsea did, for example. You come in and you have 100-day extension period. 100-day extension period is where you come in, you're the owner, but everybody who's here right now is business as usual. And you look at all the different people. You'll have your guys, if you like, for example, Sheikh Shabazz. You'll have Fadi Bakos, his personal advisor. You'll have all, the different people who's, if you like, worked on his bid, who will, whatever their qualification and their skill set is, they will be put into that area of the football club to analyse and look over if the person who's already in those positions suffices to them to stay and run what their plan and project is, or if they believe that they can get somebody better out there in the market. For example, if I'm being, if I'm being completely honest, Richard Arnold, for example, in terms of the CEO role, it's a non-starter. Like, you can't run the football club and the business in the way that you have done for the Glazer family, where it's about making profits, it's about making commercial sustainability, when potentially you could have a Qatari ownership that would come in and state, well, it's not so much about making the finances, it's about running the football club, for which he's not a football thinker. He's a commercial, financial guy. He's not a footballer. He's as far as I know with Richard Arnold, he's more of a rugby supporter than he's a football supporter. So in terms of that, I guess it sums it up in terms of maybe his imminent future. But John Murtough, I guess, is a good question in terms of director of football. As I've reiterated many times, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has already got a technical director in mind that he would want to bring to the football club. Whether Paul Mitchell is the guy who Sir Jim Ratcliffe has earmarked out, whether he would want to work with a John Murtough or vice versa, would they want to work with each other or not, is another question. But ultimately and overall, from the Qatari side, they're going to do a 100-day review, and they're going to look at the people that they want to keep and the people that they want to get rid of. And I'm not being harsh in terms of saying it, but most of the time when you have a £1 billion business and really it's been run into a different direction to what you believe and what you plan to run it into, really and essentially, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be sticking around at here and now, really, barring the manager. In terms of both groups have already insinuated that they intend to keep Erik ten Hag.
Fair. Thanks, Tom. I think the last question I see from a guy called Jamie Fletcher. Shout out to Jamie in the chat because I literally have to go now. But we obviously hope we'll be back this weekend. We'll get further updates. Probably maybe do a show either tomorrow evening, but likely either late tomorrow evening or possibly Sunday. Jamie Fletcher says, do you think we will get Qatar? How close do you think we are from Qatar winning it? And that's basically what we always end up with. I think there's a similar question by as well. It says, what's the most likely outcome of the sale? I mean, I think that's essentially the always to like, are we, if you were to give us sort of a percentage in terms of, okay, where are we now? Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because I don't, unfortunately, I don't have a bit of time to go into the whole Sir Jim Ratcliffe issues, the bid. We'll probably talk about that on another show.
Yeah.
About the complications with Sir Jim's bid if it goes through. But where do you think we are? You think we're kind of like 90% Sheikh Jassim? 10%? What do you think?
I would go as far as to say 90%. Look, after the fifth round of bid, you know, in terms of when I got quoted the premium offer, I was thinking like, and the valuation is near enough closer to Sir Jim Ratcliffe to make the Glazer family reconsider it. You know, as I said, the pendulum has swung towards Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and from what US sources are saying, and that's where the process has been run and headquartered from, either via the Glazer family directly or Rain. You know, swinging the pendulum towards Sheikh Jassim, I would insinuate that's more 65-35 split towards him, really. I think for weeks now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been negotiating and trying to get a deal done, and he hasn't been successful in his negotiations and trying to get a deal done because he's not, effectively. And there's not been an agreement in place between him and the Glazer family, as far as anybody knows. So, at the end of the day, after the final bid, it's done what it's done, hasn't it?
Fair. Thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Make sure that you follow Tom at Tom Journalist on Twitter. He's the GOAT when it's coming to these updates. So we really appreciate having you on the show, Tom. So this would be longer, but like I said, I've got work tonight, so I've literally got to bounce now. If you're new to the channel, remember to like, share, and subscribe, obviously, to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter. We United. Smash the notification button. Place Manchester United news. Try and support the channel. If you want to become a member, click the member button. That'd be great as well. I also have 2 other channels in Red Devil Studio Extra and Red Marvel, which I'll be posting content on when I can finally readjust to UK time. But do stay tuned. We are going to hopefully be live again with further updates regarding the takeover sale. But yeah, thanks again so much for coming on, Tom. Have a nice day, everyone. And cheers. Peace out. Peace.